Welcome to this explainer. I am so glad you're here. You know, as a real estate advisor with over 20 years under my belt, I see firsthand how housing math just causes a lot of sleepless nights. So today, we're going to walk through the honest numbers behind the ultimate real estate question, the whole rent versus buy dilemma. We're going to break down the actual math, clear away all that marketing noise, and look at what the 2026 market really means for your wallet. Let's dive in.
All right, here's our roadmap for today. We'll be hitting 1. The rent versus buy dilemma. 2. Running the honest numbers. 3. Uncovering the hidden costs. 4. When buying builds equity. 5. When renting makes sense. And finally, 6. Your long-term financial plan.
Section 1. The rent versus buy dilemma. Look, if you've been anxiously scrolling through listings, comparing rental prices against mortgage payments, and somehow feeling even more confused than when you started, you are definitely not alone. The debate has literally never been more nuanced than it is right now. And honestly, that's because every market and property is different. It absolutely requires a highly personalized approach. The question of whether to rent or buy in 2026 is, well, it's keeping people up at night. With shifting mortgage rates and evolving trends, the right answer simply isn't a one-size-fits-all rule anymore. The right answer depends entirely on your personal timeline and your tolerance for risk. As a seasoned advisor, I find myself constantly reminding my clients of this one crucial truth. There is absolutely no rush. A well-informed decision made 3 months from now will always outperform a pressured one made this afternoon. Patience, especially when backed by hard data, pays off every single time.
Moving right along to Section 2, running the honest numbers. Let's see how this builds by looking at a real hyper-local scenario. We're going to zoom right into the Mississauga city center market, which has actually seen some meaningful price corrections recently, creating some pretty accessible entry points for buyers.
So let's analyze a very specific, fact-based scenario to see how the numbers actually stack up when we, remove all the guesswork. We're going to look at a $540,000 condo. We'll assume a 10% down payment, so that's $54,000, and a 4.75% fixed mortgage rate over a 5-year term.
Now, check out this clean breakdown of the true carrying costs. Because it's not just that $2,850 mortgage payment, right? You've got to add in approximately $550 for condo fees, $350 for property tax, and maybe $100 for home insurance. All of that brings the total estimated cost of homeownership to $3,850 a month. But wait, there is a major catch to how that money is actually being spent. Think about that $2,850 mortgage payment for a second. Approximately $870 of that goes directly toward paying down your principal in the very first year. This means buying may help build equity. It's essentially like putting money into a forced savings account. However, that remaining $1,980, that is pure unrecoverable interest. It's money you are just never getting back. And I think this brilliantly illustrates the true comparison. When we contrast the unrecoverable loss costs of owning, which is that interest plus the condo fees, taxes, and insurance, bringing us to $2,980, against the 100% loss costs of renting the exact same unit at $2,440, well, the gap suddenly narrows quite a bit. So here is the crucial takeaway. Renting is actually only $540 cheaper per month in true unrecoverable costs. Now think about this. That $540 is exactly the amount you would need to invest consistently every single month into a diversified portfolio just to match a buyer's forced savings. If you know that money would realistically just get absorbed into lifestyle spending, like dinners out or vacations, the forced discipline of a mortgage payment has historically worked out in homeowners' favor.
All right, Section 3, uncovering the hidden costs. We really can't just stop at the monthly payments because we need to uncover the hidden financial realities that those online calculators completely ignore. The sticker price is literally never the final price.
Buying involves some massive upfront and ongoing hidden costs. We're talking about land transfer taxes, which, even after a first-time buyer rebate here in Ontario, sits at roughly $2,475. Then you've got legal fees up to $2,500, home inspections, title insurance, and moving costs. Plus, here's the big one everyone seems to forget, a 1% annual maintenance reserve. Even in a condo, budgeting $450 a month for surprise repairs and special assessments is absolutely essential. But on the flip side, renters face their own harsh financial realities. If you're in a newer unit that's exempt from rent control, you absolutely must acknowledge the risk of uncontrolled rent increases the second your lease is up for renewal. Furthermore, spending $2,440 a month over 5 years, that equates to a staggering $144,000 spent with absolutely zero equity to show for it.
Which brings us to Section 4, when buying builds equity. Understanding exactly when purchasing property makes mathematical sense as an investment is absolutely key here. Like we've seen, buying may help build equity, but it requires the right environmental conditions to actually thrive.
As this timeline clearly shows, short-term market appreciation is never guaranteed. Every market and property is different, and market values can go up, down, or just stay flat. Because of this reality, you generally need a 5 to 7 year horizon just to recoup those heavy transaction costs we just talked about. In year 1, those costs hit you hard. By year 5, you typically hit the break-even point. And then by year 7, that's when you're looking at some meaningful wealth accumulation.
So buying is definitely the right move if you have a stable timeline of 5 to 7 years. It also requires healthy, manageable debt service ratios, meaning your gross debt service ratio is comfortably under 32%. You absolutely must have a robust 3 to 6 month emergency fund so you aren't ever forced into a distressed sale. Ultimately, you've got to view the property as a long-term wealth accumulation tool, not some quick speculative bet. Moving on to Section 5, when renting makes sense. Look, let me be very clear here. There is zero shame in renting. In fact, renting may make sense in some situations, and it can actually be a strategically superior choice for your overall financial health. If you plan to move within 3 years for career or personal reasons, or if your down payment completely wipes out your emergency cushion, a strategic pause is just smarter. Crucially, if you need to aggressively eliminate high-interest student or credit card debt, we're talking those 8% to 20% interest rates, renting is absolutely the mathematically correct sequence. It's also the right move if you want to strategically save while monitoring the market from a position of real strength. And listen, if you are renting strategically to save up, you absolutely must utilize a First Home Savings Account, or FHSA. This amazing program allows you to make tax-deductible contributions of up to $8,000 annually with a $40,000 lifetime limit. The tax advantages are simply too significant to ignore while you're building up your readiness to buy. Finally, Section 6, your long-term financial plan. Now that we've laid out both sides pretty impartially, it's time to build a decision framework that actually works for your specific life. This isn't about guessing. This is about mapping out your long-term financial plan. I can't stress this enough. Run the numbers before deciding, period. Follow this simple 4-step plan. First, calculate your specific math with your actual income. Second, get a formal mortgage pre-approval. Third, open your FHSA to maximize your savings power. And fourth, sit down with an honest local expert who will give you the unvarnished truth about whether now is your time or if waiting is the better play. Remember, real estate isn't about perfectly timing a fluctuating market. Like we said, property values can go up, down, or just stay completely flat. True success in this space is about intentional, long-term financial planning that protects you from ever making decisions out of desperation. It's about making sure you're financially secure enough to weather literally any storm. So, I'll leave you with this final vital question. Are you going to keep losing sleep over market pressure and making massive housing decisions based on catchy marketing slogans? Or are you ready to sit down, run your own honest numbers, and take real control of your long-term financial future today? The math is sitting right there waiting for you, and the choice is entirely yours. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer.